Hi. Well, we're ready to start the review and the critique for the focus stack assignment that you guys turned in. I have to say that for the most part, technically, you did it all pretty well. It looks like you got the technique down fairly well. We've had a few little issues we're going to take a look at. It looks like we have maybe 3 parts that will take us to get through this assignment. So I'll go ahead and get started. This first one is unfortunately going to be fairly fast because we have a problem opening this. When I click on this to open it, I get this little warning thing. I cannot open it. It seems to be labeled right, but I'm guessing that it's some other file which got the JPEG marker attached to it. But whatever it is, I can't open it. I could see it well enough to grade it, but I can't do anything with it to work with this here. So we'll say okay, and we'll go on to our next. Here we have an interesting shot, although it appears to be a fairly narrow depth of field. We did get the shoes in it, but when we zoom in on it, we're going to discover there is an interesting problem. But first, we've got to put some light in here. And again, I believe the easiest way to do this is what we've done a number of times before. We'll make a duplicate layer. We'll turn that into a screen layer. Oh yeah, there's all kinds of stuff there. We'll now come in, we'll hold down the Alt key and do a reverse mask. Because the mask is black, we need a white brush. I'm going to set the opacity to about 50% roughly. Make it a little bit bigger with the bracket keys. And now we'll go a bit bigger. I think it wouldn't hurt to lighten this even a little more. So we're going to take this layer and duplicate it. Now we can start seeing some of the detail in it. You've got to bring this out, guys. You can't just leave these things silhouetted. Our other really interesting problem is this embroidery on the side of the shoe. It really looks like it's backwards. Now, unless this is designed for you to walk up to a mirror to see what your shoe is, what your supply number is, I'm guessing that it reads the other way around. So I'm going to first flatten this. Then I'm going to rotate it horizontally just so I can see. And look at that. Supply 350. So what happened? How'd this get turned around the wrong way? Interesting. Do another one. Well, here we have an interesting walkway to somewhere. This is kind of fascinating. It's a pretty serious overpass or bridge or whatever it is, though I have no idea where it is or what it's all about. Yes, you most certainly got the long depth of field in. Good for you. But what are we shooting here? What is the shot? I would suggest we could make this a little better and force this really strong upward arrowhead in the middle if we turned it into more of a panorama. And then we've got the issue of the structures up here, which are almost but not quite hidden. There's no apparent way to get from the end of this overpass up here, although I'm sure there is a walkway or something, but we're not connected in any way. So there's a lot of unresolved visual messaging going on in here that leaves us kind of confused as to what we're looking at. Try to solve those issues when you take your pictures if you can. Let's grab another one. Well, here we have a fascinating, if aerodynamically bizarre, little VW camper bus. Very clever. I'm assuming this is a Legos thing, but I'm not sure. It's kind of interesting the way it goes together into this unmistakable shape. And yes, you did get it all in focus. So did a good job at that. This is pretty nicely done. I think I would have lit it a little more dramatically, but hey, this is a good start. And it is a focus stacking assignment, not a lighting assignment. So, okay, we'll take this. Well, again, we certainly have a deep depth of field. I'm guessing this is a fence behind a wall of some kind, and it runs from the foreground into this background sharply rather. So, yes, that tends to work. I'm not sure why some of this isn't equally sharp. There's an interesting angle to the depth of field plane here. But again, what does this say to us? We've got this really strong directional line, and it goes into a blown out sun. We've got the lines of this sidewalk, and they go into fuzziness. Nothing really is pointing at this stop sign. So what really is going on in the picture? Remember, I asked you before that when you're taking a picture, even though it's for a technical assignment, try to make it a really interesting picture. Perhaps even if we just cropped in tighter with this or changed your angle a little to where we had a shot like this, we could at least claim that it was an abstract of some sort. But as it sits now, it needs some direction. It needs some help to make it carry a meaningful statement to the viewers. So we have a nice pot with a takeoff on an Indian design around the collar of the pot. It is all in focus. Your focus stack worked really well. The only thing, again, I would do is probably come down a little on this, just so we don't have so much of that top that isn't going anywhere or isn't telling us anything. But technically, pulled it off. But what can you tell us about this plant and this pot if we're going to go to the trouble to get it all in focus? Are we missing something? Is there some detail in here that a different perspective, a different angle, a different view might tell us about? Here we have a shot where when you resized it, goodness knows you did attempt to resize it correctly, but let's take a look at this. You changed the widths before you changed the resolution. And so when you then changed the resolution, it brought everything down. This should be, one of these should be 1,000, not 300. So the order, I realize that it's out of order in this window, but you need to remember that and to change the actual dimension after you have changed the resolution. I'm not sure we can enlarge this enough to do much. See how rapidly it starts to pixelate? Really nice paracord strap, though. That's pretty cool. And it appears, as much as we can tell through the pixelation, like the focus stack worked. But really pay attention to the steps. Okay, we got another couple little Lego figures here. Looks like one's chasing the other. The little guy in the helmet is chasing the farmer in the overalls for some unknown reason out in the snow. A question came up that I wanted to wait for the review to answer was how to blend this. This is paper with some snow over it. How can you blend these to make this fit? Well, it's difficult because it appears that there is very little, if any, detail, any texture in this snow. If there was, if you could actually see the granularity of the snow, then if you came over here where we normally pick up the spot healing brush and just picked up the healing brush tool, not the spot healing, but the healing brush, then this is going to work very much like your clone stamp tool. When you pick up here, again, just like the clone stamp tool, you hold down the Alt key, pick that up. Now, if there were anything there that is texture, then what we would be doing now is pulling this texture, not the tones, not the color, but the texture, the pattern, over onto this. And you could blend that to where it blended out, or for that matter, fill the whole thing with it. So it's another tool for you. It looks like we tried doing a little clone stamping here and messed up the hands of the little guy that's chasing the other guy. But remember that the healing brush is going to pull texture in. Otherwise, what we're left with is we would need to mask this so that we can't overwrite it. Then we could come in and clone this in and let it blend in so you wouldn't notice it. Or we could blend the white back into that. We could go either way with it. Well, another fascinating tableau with little tiny characters in it. Do you guys collect these things? I'm not sure what's going on here. And we have the main part of it in focus, but from and so that all works for that, and I'll give you this. But the problem with this is, let me show you an example. Here's roughly your layout. Your camera's here. We've got this long layout of stuff, but there's really not much depth in here. This could potentially, with the right lens, could have been done in one shot. What we're interested is if we take this camera and pull it over to the side and look down this to where we have more depth of field, or more depth rather, then how do we stack all of this together? So our issue in this particular shot really isn't that this didn't work. The seriousness of the technique wasn't really required here. You could probably do this with the right lens and the right aperture setting. I'm going to do this last one, and then we'll stop this part and go to part 2. This is interesting. We have a group of tiaras that I assume are awards for this. What is this, a dance final in 2016? Does this mean the person that has these won them all? That would have been interesting. The only problem now is you certainly have them all captured in the focus stack. Good job. You did that. Everything from this front piece to the back one appears to be sharp. It's just that it goes back into the dark back in here. It'd be nice to see some light on this particular tiara. We could potentially bring that out by making this a screen layer. And now again, we're going to do a reverse mask. Hold down the Alt key, click on the layer mask tool. I'm going to zoom in so we can see it. And now what we could do with a little tiny brush, is go in and brighten that all up. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I'm just going to do a couple of these rows really quickly, and then we'll take a look at it so you can see how it would look different than it was. And so on. No, I'll pull this one more line in. And now you can see that tiara starting to stand out as opposed to this original one where it's just lost in the shadows. So you could bring things like that out using the screen layer, the layer mask tool. Okay, that's going to wrap it up for part 1. We'll be back with part 2 in a bit. So see you then.